How could an isolated temple, nestled in the mountains of Mount Parnassus, become the spiritual heart of ancient Greece? Delphi was not just a place of worship, it was where the fate of entire empires was decided. Powerful kings and legendary generals made long pilgrimages there seeking one thing, the enigmatic guidance of the Oracle of Delphi. But what made the Pythia, the temple's priestess, so special? In a trance, she delivered messages that many believed to be the very voice of the god Apollo. For some, these words were divine, a direct connection to the beyond. For others, they concealed something more earthly, perhaps manipulation, politics, or even hallucinogenic effects caused by the mysterious vapors emanating from beneath the temple. For centuries, Delphi's prophecies influenced battles, coronations, and even the fall of civilizations. But now modern science offers a new perspective. Was the oracle's wisdom rooted in the supernatural, or is there a more tangible explanation behind this ancient mystery? The enigma of Delphi persists, waiting for your interpretation. To understand the mystery surrounding the Oracle of Delphi, one must imagine the atmosphere filled with mysticism and anticipation within the temple dedicated to Apollo. On specific days, carefully chosen by the priests, the Pythia, a priestess, who served as a mediator between mortals and the god, would prepare for a transcendent experience. It was not an easy role, nor just any vocation. To become the Pythia, a woman had to leave her ordinary life behind and undergo years of spiritual and ritualistic preparation. Initially, the role was reserved for young virgins, but later, older women assumed the position, symbolically dressing as maidens to preserve the tradition. The ritual began with a series of purifications. The Pythia bathed in the cold waters of the Castalian Spring, a sacred water source located on the slopes of Mount Parnassus. She also chewed bay leaves, a plant associated with Apollo, as if trying to absorb the divine essence. Everything in the environment was meticulously designed to create an aura of supernatural power. The temple itself, with its imposing columns and symbolic decoration, inspired reverence. The questions brought by the supplicants, often kings or generals, were not presented directly to the Pythia, but were first filtered by the priests, who processed the information before relaying it to the priestess in her altered state. This critical moment took place within a space known as the Adyton, a subterranean chamber hidden from public view. The Pythia would sit on a bronze tripod, strategically placed over a fissure in the ground from which mysterious vapors rose. Ancient accounts described these vapors as essential to the trance process, though their true role remained a mystery. For centuries, for the ancient Greeks, this was the bridge between the human world and the divine, a literal manifestation of Apollo's presence at the site. As the vapors began to rise, the Pythia would enter a deep trance. Her words, often fragmented or disjointed, were interpreted by the priests, who transformed them into comprehensible messages, or at least attempted to. The oracle's responses were rarely straightforward. Instead, they were cryptic, leaving room for multiple interpretations. This ambiguity, far from being a flaw, was one of its greatest strengths. A vague prophecy could be molded to fit various outcomes, preserving the oracle's credibility, even when circumstances changed. The oracle's power did not rest solely on the Pythia or the vapors, but on the carefully crafted environment surrounding the ritual. The setting generated an almost irresistible sense of mystery, a combination of religious, psychological, and natural elements that made anyone entering the temple feel they were in the presence of something greater than life itself. But what was really happening during the trance? For centuries, it was believed that the Pythia was possessed by the divine, allowing Apollo to speak through her. However, modern studies have begun to shed new light on this process. Geological excavations in the area have revealed the existence of a tectonic fault beneath the temple. This fault allowed the release of gases, possibly including ethylene, a substance known to induce hallucinations and euphoria at specific concentrations. This would explain the Pythia's altered state of consciousness without invoking the supernatural. But does this diminish the oracle's legitimacy? Here lies an ambiguous terrain, as enigmatic as Delphi's prophecies themselves. On one hand, some see the scientific explanation as proof that the oracle was a carefully staged performance, where the priests manipulated the expectations of the supplicants to maintain the temple's political and spiritual power. On the other hand, it can be argued that even under the influence of chemical substances, the sincere belief in divine communication was so powerful that the messages, ambiguous or not, genuinely shaped the course of history. After all, faith itself can be a transformative force, and here lies the true dilemma of Delphi, the fine line between belief and manipulation, between science and spirituality. The Pythia, inhaling vapors, may have been just the visible face of a much more complex tradition, where every element, from the architecture to the rituals, was designed to reinforce the sense of direct contact with the divine. But was the priestess's trance really caused solely by chemical vapors, or was there a level of belief so profound that it transcended any rational explanation? What is certain is that those who knelt before the Pythia did not see tricks or science. They saw destiny, hope, and answers to dilemmas that could decide the future of entire cities. And even today, thousands of years later, the mystery of the Oracle of Delphi still seems to whisper questions in our minds. To what extent are our own destinies shaped by the interpretation of signs we choose to believe in? Those who sought the oracle didn't care about chemical explanations or possible tricks. What they needed was something far more urgent: answers to questions of life and death. For kings and generals, a single phrase from the Pythia could mean the difference between eternal glory or the collapse of an empire. No story illustrates the power of the Oracle of Delphi better than that of King Croesus, ruler of the prosperous and proud kingdom of Lydia. Croesus, known for his vast wealth, faced a strategic dilemma. Should he attack the Persian Empire, which was rising under the leadership of Cyrus the Great? To ensure he wouldn't make a rash decision, Croesus sent emissaries to the oracle, offering valuable gifts in exchange for a glimpse of the future. The Pythia's response became legendary. "If you cross the Halys River, you will destroy a great empire." Elated by the prediction, Croesus interpreted it as a guaranteed victory. But what he failed to understand was that the oracle was a master of ambiguity. The empire destroyed was not Cyrus's but his own. Croesus was defeated and captured after a disastrous loss. This prophecy demonstrates that the true power of the oracle didn't lie in scientifically accurate predictions, but in delivering answers that seemed clear at the moment, yet, in hindsight, revealed an enigmatic and multifaceted nature. What supplicants took from Delphi wasn't absolute certainty, but a malleable truth, one that could adapt to any outcome. Croesus was not the only historical figure to fall into the trap of this double-edged interpretation. Many leaders and generals over the centuries experienced the same dilemma. But what explains the Pythia's mysterious state? Was it merely political cunning, or was there a scientific basis for the priestess's trance? For a long time, the vapors, described in ancient accounts, were dismissed as mythological embellishments, details exaggerated to enhance the oracle's mystique. However, archaeological excavations at the ruins of Delphi in the late 20th century began to challenge this view. Geologists discovered that the temple was indeed located above an active tectonic fault, which allowed gases from deep within the earth to rise to the surface. Further analysis suggested the presence of ethylene, a gas known to induce euphoria and hallucinations when inhaled in small doses. Ethylene, when inhaled in controlled environments, can induce sensations of lightness, trance, and even visions. Precisely the type of experience described by ancient sources when the Pythia was said to communicate with the divine. This discovery offered a new perspective on Delphi. The temple was likely not built there by accident. The early Greeks, even without geological knowledge, may have recognized the effects of the vapors and strategically used the location to amplify the oracle's mystical power. If the natural environment itself contributed to an altered state of consciousness, it would only reinforce the belief that something sacred was occurring. However, science does not solve all of Delphi's mysteries. The gases explain the Pythia's trance, but do not account for the oracle's enduring influence over centuries. The prophecies were meticulously recorded, debated, and reinterpreted, often in ways that made them seem accurate regardless of the outcome. This leads to the next question. Was Delphi a well-orchestrated fraud or a deeply ingrained cultural phenomenon within the Greek collective psyche? The discovery of hallucinogenic vapors beneath the temple may have uncovered part of the mystery, but it didn't solve the central question. Was the Oracle of Delphi a carefully constructed illusion or a genuine expression of Greek faith in the divine? For many modern scholars, the oracle's power cannot be explained solely by the effects of ethylene. Something far greater was at play, and it may not have been a fraud in the traditional sense, but rather a perfect convergence of cultural belief, political context, and subtle manipulation. In ancient Greece, religion and politics were deeply intertwined. Delphi was not only a spiritual center, but also a strategic hub within the balance of power between city-states. The priests working at the temple had access to privileged information from all corners of the Greek world. Ship captains, merchants, and envoys brought news of battles, alliances, and tensions, allowing the interpreters of the prophecies to tailor the messages in ways that preserved the temple's authority. It would be naive to think that this knowledge wasn't used to shape the Pythia's responses, especially when influential leaders sought guidance before making critical decisions. But does this mean that Delphi was essentially a political theater, disguised as religious devotion? Not entirely. While manipulation likely played a role, one must also consider the genuine power of faith during that era. For the Greeks, the gods were present in every aspect of daily life, from harvests to battles. Believing that Apollo spoke through the Pythia wasn't just a religious conviction, but a framework for interpreting the world. Even when the prophecies were vague or ambiguous, the oracle's credibility remained intact because the supplicants themselves believed in it. They weren't seeking absolute truths. They were looking for signs to guide their decisions. Moreover, the ambiguity of the prophecies wasn't a flaw, but an intentional feature. By delivering enigmatic responses, Delphi's priests ensured that the oracle could adapt to any outcome without losing relevance. If a leader misinterpreted a prophecy, the fault wasn't with the temple but with human fallibility in deciphering the divine will. This created a self-perpetuating cycle. Even when things went wrong, faith in the oracle remained unshaken. What makes this question even more intriguing is that, despite centuries of debate, there's no clear consensus on where sincere belief ends and strategic manipulation begins. Perhaps the true power of the Oracle of Delphi lies in this very duality. It didn't need to be entirely authentic or entirely fraudulent. Its purpose was to reflect the spirit of ancient Greece, where religion, politics, and fate were inseparably linked. And so, the mystery endures. Was Delphi a brilliant example of how collective faith can shape reality, or a testament to the power of manipulation, or perhaps both at once? After all, in a world where gods were as real as the wind, the line between the divine and the human was always blurred. The Oracle of Delphi continues to challenge us, even thousands of years later. Whether it was faith, science, or a carefully crafted manipulation, the fact remains that its prophecies shaped the course of ancient history and still spark the imagination today. Perhaps the true essence of the mystery isn't in determining whether it was a fraud or the truth, but in understanding how belief can define the destiny of an entire civilization. And Delphi isn't the only great enigma of antiquity. Atlantis, for example, is one of history's most infamous unsolved mysteries. Want to learn how everything you've heard about Atlantis might be a hoax? Click the video on the screen now to uncover the truth behind the myth.